There is so much going on in the Beyblade community. The Quad Strike anime is going to be coming very soon, the Quad Strike bays are already out, and we know there's a huge announcement coming from Takara Tomy in March. So with so much going on, I just wanted to sit down and talk with friends about all the Beyblade news. So that is what I did. I sat down with Beyblade legends Kimbo and Bolto MS, and we talked about the future of Beyblade for about an hour. The video is not going to be super highly edited or anything, but I just wanted to talk about all the Beyblade news. But before we get into it though, I want to thank the sponsor of the channel, Mall of Toys. If you guys are interested in getting any Beyblade burst bays like Barricade Lucifer, the Versus set, or even some older stuff like Guilty Longinus or Xiphoid Excalibur, they are the place to go. They've been a great friend to the channel for a long time, so links in the description down below. Go and check them out. But now, let's get into the Baycast. So I guess first, just introduce yourselves.
My name's Jeff. No, I'm just kidding. It's your boy Kimbo here.
And I am Baltomes.
Legendary Beyblade YouTubers. So now let's talk about the first point of the day. Let's talk about the new Quad Strike anime trailer that dropped, and that's going to be releasing, I assume, not too long from now, because I think Quad Drive is on its last like episode or two, so we should be seeing Quad Strike towards the beginning of the new year. So what do you guys think of it as a general statement for right now?
Overall, like it of course was just a shot out of the dark, like completely out of nowhere that this was happening, because we all assumed
big
that
surprise.
Yeah, for sure. We all assumed that it was done because TT announcing it and making it known, like season 7 not getting an anime, but then Hasbro said hold my Quad Strike and brought this in. So overall, I'm digging it. Just even from the trailer, there's a new female blader besides Ilya, and I don't know if she's gonna be like the protagonist in this, because they started off with her before even showing off Belle. But like, if so, that's Beyblade history. That's a female protagonist for the first time ever.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
And even just the animation and seeing Vault back in it, there's so much potential for this. I made a whole theory before about like if there was a season 7 and Endgame feel with it, they could bring some of those aspects in with this and truly give Burst like its true wrap up, because I love what they've done with the bays and everything. The only thing is just the way that the show ended off with a major cliffhanger, like never sat right with me.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's so much potential for them to really tie the knot on this, at least somewhat. And the way that it dropped off like that definitely bummed me out. So Hasbro,
you're saying like the ending of Quad Drive or Dynamite Battle is kind of a cliffhanger. Wasn't the manga ending a little bit different?
It was like in the manga, they had Belle and Vault face off again, and then Belle beat Vault, and it kind of resolved that way. But then in the show, sorry, spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen it on like the Hasbro side.
Spoiler alert.
It ended off with like Belle beating Rashad, but then Belle and Vault never faced off. They just had another triple threat, and it ended with them all launching in, and we don't even know who won that triple threat. They have like major potential with this to really tie things together if they capitalize on it the right way. Like bay wise, we know how the quality will be for the bays, like it is what it is, but like show wise, I'm really excited.
Bolto, what do you think?
I don't know, like, so I'm very shocked we got another season, especially with a Hasbro exclusive. You know, the D-Riots and I don't know, the weird thing that they got going on with Takara Tomy and like licensing. It was interesting to see Hasbro get its own like spin-off. I don't want to say spin-off, but like actual series, like official series. So I don't know, and it exclusively like Hasbro's bays. You can't deny that Hasbro bays are like their own thing now. You know, they did the Quad Strike, whatever they are, and so I don't know. But seeing a female, like Kimbo said, either a protagonist or an antagonist, and her being one of the main characters, that's one of my. I don't know. I really like it. I'm a little bummed that her Beyblade isn't pink. I mean, I know girls don't just have pink stuff. Yeah, it was our one chance for a pink Beyblade, and you know, kind of.
I mean, we had the Hello Kitty, which was, I guess, that was red.
Yeah, and then we had a few magenta bays, but like I was like, I mean, I guess I'm glad because you know, like stereotypes, you know, that she didn't get a pink bay, but still, I don't know. I like the general idea. I like the fact that she's got like a really unique looking bay. It looks kind of like a balance bay,
Hmm.
maybe. So she's maybe got like that shoe thing going on. I don't know, but it,
Yeah.
it looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's kind of like something that I mentioned that a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that don't really like Hasbro Beyblade, and I don't really blame them. I feel like
Mhm.
if you compare Takara Tomy and Hasbro together, especially for the Quad Strike bays, like I have a couple of them, they have their pros, sure, but I think it's kind of mostly cons. I think there's a lot of issues with them.
Mhm.
But I mean, we're getting another anime season, which since nobody kind of expected it, I don't really think you could really complain about it. Like, there's a lot of people that don't want to watch it because it's Hasbro, but I mean, it's kind of something that nobody asked for, but it's like an extra bonus, you know? And there are some people that don't buy the Beyblades, but they just kind of watch the show.
Mhm.
And I think of what I've seen so far, it looks kind of interesting. Quadra looks cool. I made a community tab post about it, but it's either her name isn't actually Quadra or Hasbro's breaking. I say Hasbro, but it's not. Hasbro doesn't make the animation, but I'll say that because it's a little bit easier. But her name's not Quadra, or Hasbro is changing the naming schemes. Because there's Vault, Valkyrie, Shu, Spriggan, and it's Quadra with Pandora, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And we also know that her brother's name is Pax, and so that name scheme makes sense. So I'm wondering if, I think she's known, it's like a stage name, but if we're gonna find out what her actual name is, and I feel like it's kind of interesting. I like the character so far.
And it definitely is the Hasbro exclusive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's got Hasbro launchers in it. And if you look
Yeah.
really closely, I was watching the footage just now. If you look at the bottom of her bay, it's a quad drive, like, like the little caps that they have on the end. It
Yeah.
looks like it. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, and the whole like different elements is kind of interesting because her Beyblade Lightning Pandora is an elemental bay, and lightning is one of the types. So I'm wondering if we're going to be getting there might have already been one announced, but I'm not sure what all the Quad Strike products that have been leaked so far. We could be getting like because I think it's lightning, wind, water, and fire.
Yeah.
And we already know there's going to be a wind knight. So I guess is there going to maybe be a wind Pandora, a wind or a fire Pandora? So kind of going through all the different elements,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea. But about the Beyblades, good time to move on to the Quad Strike bays. Do either of you have any of the Quad Strike stuff yet?
I've ordered some and it's on the way,
Yeah.
but it's not arrived yet.
Volto, what about you? I could probably already assume what the answer is.
Actually, I don't even know what quad strike Beyblades are.
Yeah, so Quad Strike is the new lineup, like how there was Quad Drive before it, and it's basically just. I should kind of share my screen right now, but it's basically just Quad Drive, but it's the new Burst Ultimate stuff. So like in my hand right now, I have the Xiphoid Excalius from the launcher set, and there's a lot of issues with it.
That's a quad strike?
Yeah. So already, just to kind of, I know it's kind of like a weird tangent, but the prices on these have definitely gone up. Kind of like they've shadow gone up. Like at my local Target, the Quad Strike Excalius, it came with a sword launcher. Sword launcher is kind of like the Super Grip launcher from way back when, but just kind of upgraded a little bit. It was $25.
Oh my god! I was thinking maybe 20 would be outrageous. 25?
And then the double packs, and also most of the double packs we see in the first wave don't actually have anime bays in them. At least what we know so far. We haven't seen any of the characters that could be using some of them. Maybe they have new characters that use some. But as of right now, they're from unknown characters. And they're $17.
Jesus Christ.
So the prices on these have definitely gone up. I think they're more expensive than Evolution bays at this point, or like right at the same price as them. I know like Evolution stuff was kind of expensive, but I think starters are like $11 now or something. I think they've gotten a little bit more expensive, and I just don't think they're worth it anymore, as if they were really worth it to begin
Yeah.
with.
I mean, inflation, but also definite just business strategy of,
Yeah.
like as little cost as possible for as much profit as possible too. But it's
Mhm.
also like if you have some of the older stuff going and walloping some of the newer bays, it's kind of like discouraging. I get it being like, okay, a more balanced system and such, with bays all being around sort of the same level power wise, but over, like you said earlier, there's definitely a clear cut difference between TT and Hasbro with the quality of the bays just being real.
Yeah.
And I'm always like constructive with it. If the bay looks really sick and it looks cool, like I'm really excited to see what exclusives Hasbro makes for this. At the same time, part of me is like, I wish they do like more Pro Series stuff, and if they actually made some of these bays into like Pro Series, like that would switch up a lot. Like imagine like a Lightning Pandora that's actually like BPBU level with
Yeah.
Hasbro's own
Like
parts that they can get
Hasbro's, yeah. Or like
That would be
Muramasa
insane.
from Quad Drive. That'd be really cool.
People would be like exporting. You know how a lot of like Japanese sellers export to US. That would be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a huge deal. It'd be a huge deal.
Yeah, like vice versa would definitely happen.
Yeah. Now I got a question for you guys, and I know we kind of touched on it, but we didn't really expand on it.
Yeah.
Hasbro has a lot of like spin-offs. We know that, right? Ironic, spin-offs. But anyway, why do you think that they got, and why do you think that they're making an exclusive? Like, it's kind of weird. It's like, why wouldn't Karatomi want to capitalize on a whole other season of Beyblade? Especially with seeing vaults. You think it's just going to be like what was the one with was it Shogun still, or the one with the zero gravity? Your favorite base stadium?
Yeah.
Oh, the dome fishbowl
dome.
stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously that wasn't Hasbro exclusive, but like, we saw like, oh my God, this is so bad. I forgot his name. What is the main character? No, Pegasus.
Jinka.
Oh, Jenga.
Jinga. Yeah, we saw him appear, but like, it's kind of weird that Hasbro is getting an official Beyblade
Yeah.
remake with the original characters showing up doing cameos. So it's like, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I have an idea for why, potentially. And I think it's because the audiences they're going for are completely different. I think that Japan just has more of a culture on games, whether in like the whole competitive aspects. Like there's way more card games over there. A lot of like niche card games. They have like internet cafes. I know it's kind of more of a Korea thing a little bit from what I know. They have more like internet cafes. Online gaming is taken more seriously. Like cheating in online games is taken way more seriously.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like a cultural difference, and I think that and especially with how like hobby shops are, toy shops are, I think that even without an anime, the interest would taper down. But even without a series, I think this name for Beyblade is strong enough, and I feel like there's way more people that want to collect all of them for like the competition's sake, kind of like collectors. Meanwhile, Hasbro is appealing to the lowest common denominator, which are kids who are walking through Target with their parents and they just kind of want something on a whim. So it's kind of like, when you're checking out of Walmart or Target, and you at the self-checkout, they have like Dr. Peppers, Cokes, gum, whatever, and those are like impulse purchases for you to buy on your way out. That's the way that Hasbro is treating Beyblade. So they don't want people to buy and collect all of them. They just want people to buy as many of them at one time as they can.
That's interesting.
So they need like an anime series that kids can watch. That way it kind of gives them a reason to impulse buy it. Meanwhile, in Japan, people already know about it because they're actively looking it up.
Yeah, that does make sense. It's also one of those things with this. It's like, oh, were you gonna say something, Bolto?
Oh no, I'm just saying that makes a lot of sense. Like that's a really good theory.
Yeah, for sure. It's also tough because, as you said, it is kind of more on like the kid side for Hasbro, but also they got to be careful with it too because it's a given there's an older audience that's like strictly into like the competitive and everything with it, but
Hmm.
mainly those like diehard fans that love the show and such, whether you're like competitive or not. So they, like I said earlier, have a huge opportunity with this, like tying strings together, like showing off their own bays and characters with the bays and the gimmicks and everything for the bays in the show,
Yeah.
but also seeing how the show ended under under TT with DB, and this being like a continuation for it. They have a huge opportunity to just like tie everything together. So you got like the younger audience, but also like the older audience even watching the show.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And that's why
It's definitely
yeah,
into both.
that's why I'm like kind of cautiously optimistic about it because it's really like I feel like the stakes are kind of low because really if people like hardcore fans like us, if it's not good or we don't find the series to be good, there's kind of the excuse that it's not canon. It doesn't make sense
Yeah.
because it wasn't written by I forget what his name is, but the author of the whole Burst manga, he didn't like write it. Maybe he had some say in some character designs, we'll have to see, but he didn't write it. So you
Right.
can have the excuse that it's not canon, it's just extra. But if it is good, it's like it's kind of if you don't like the products, then at least the show is kind of like a fun, kind of like a novelty to watch. It's kind of like a little bonus.
Yeah, I got you. I think this is probably the best reference I can make. Have either of you played like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild?
Yeah.
Have you played like Age of Calamity?
I've played it for a little bit. I did like the demo
So
for it.
basically, like in an alternate universe, so events happening that diverge the path, like how Zelda is. I see it kind of like this. So it's like it ends off, with like TT and Hasbro side because they had the same exact anime, but then it being like a kind of divergent down one side because Hasbro doing this. Like I see it kind of that way. So it could be like, yeah, and there's whole arguments like, is it canon? Is it not canon? Because it's like
Yeah.
characters we saw before, but like just looking at the animation for the trailer, it looked like Pandora was facing off against Belial, if I'm not mistaken, like the perfect gear Dangerous, like with all the gears and everything on it. So it's like does this take place afterwards because we see Bell using Dangerous with all the gears?
Yeah, I
or,
think that they revealed a set, or there was images that came out for a set, and it has Lightning Pandora and the new Bellfire. I forget I don't know what Hasbro is calling it, but the new like Divine Belial. It has that in the set. Part of me wonders if one of the two is going to be because like every time they do a set, they have a Beyblade that's like exclusive to the set. I'm wondering if that Bellfire is going to be exclusive to the set or not, because I don't think I've seen it in any of the listings in double packs or starters, boosters, whatever. I think maybe they're making it to where you have to buy that set to get Bell's Beyblade.
Right. Which I mean would be that's how they did so for Devastate, which Dangerous Belial.
Yeah, which is
And
unfortunate.
Also, they're both exclusive to that, so
Hmm.
it's like also that thing of like you really think about it, like the way they could tie this in if it is like Dangerous, actually like Bell battling with Dangerous with all the gears and everything. Like how rogue would it be if like this first battle, because we see them face off, if we have like a Bell Ranzo type of thing with this. So what I mean is if you see the beginning of like how Quad Drive or DB went, how Glide broke in that battle like accidentally. Like if we have like a Bell Ranzo but happens to Bell and it's between like Quadra and Bell. So she ends up like breaking Belial with that battle, and then that's how he gets Divine.
I mean, they do kind of use the breaking Beyblades thing a lot, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I wonder if Hasbro is gonna do. I don't know. I feel like it'd be kind of odd for them to showcase stuff breaking whenever Hasbro bays are known for being kind of way more brittle than Takara Tomy stuff.
That was real life breaking action.
Yeah, it's also funny that if they do show that where it breaks the is it dangerous? Do they call it dangerous? What is it called for the Hasbro one? The dangerous Belial or Bellfire. Devastate. It'd be kind of interesting that because you know the set's expensive. That kind of goes on a whole other point. The set was like almost $70 just buying it from Target, and I think it's on sale right now for like the holiday season. Well, this could be the set that they're pushing a lot, and so a lot of kids might get this set for Christmas, and then they right after Christmas they watch the first episode of Quad Strike and they see that thing shatter. That'll be kind of interesting. That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens.
So, could I give a theory that's going to be insane? I don't know. Like, okay, so I've got a theory, and that is
a game theory. Sorry.
A game theory. So I know we're not supposed to be branching off to the slip of paper just yet, but it kind of branches into it.
It's a good segue.
But I was thinking Hasbro might not be getting the next gen Beyblade. If you think about it, Hasbro's still catching up, but they're kind of almost caught up with the Beyblade series, right? So once Takara Tomy starts, let's say they do release the new gen, right? Which is probably going to happen because it lasted like what, 2 or 3 years beyond what it was supposed to last. So it could be that Takara Tomy's going to make a miniature spin-off gen, right? Kind of like Zoids. I don't know if you guys know what Zoids are, but there was Zoids, and then there was like the Murasame Liger Zoids. I can't remember what that one was called. So, and then there was Zoids Wild, which was just a mini series that was like a spin-off. It was a totally different gen. I didn't really like it. But it could be that Hasbro's contract is still in session, right? And so Hasbro might have complained, and they're like, hey, look, you know, we still have time left in our contract with Beyblade Burst. And so Takara let them have this mini series to kind of satiate that. But they might not be renewing the contract. So is a crazy theory. I know it's out of left field, but I was thinking, like, what if that's what's going on here? Because that would explain why they're getting an exclusive series that's not a spin-off. And if it was a spin-off, there really wouldn't be much to think about. It's like, oh, it's just a Hasbro thing. But like, it could be like Hasbro's just like, hey, we want to continue making these Beyblades before we either don't get the next gen, or I don't know. And that's what I'm saying. That's the only way I could think of it. Like, it's just like Takara Tomy wants to move on. Hasbro does not. Hasbro still has some time left in their contract. Takara Tomy was like, fine, and threw him a bone. You know? I don't know. That's it. That's
Kim, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I'd say it's possible. Like, they do have that small window of time, because it's like, you know, like Bolto said, they're still sitting and catching up. And I mean, it gives them the opportunity to really be creative with things. It's also just like, while doing it, being smart about their choices, especially with the show. Because there's so much potential. There's so much potential with the show, honestly. Like, if you think about it, just because you know the bays are going to be including with this, because of all the bays we saw in BU. So you think about it, we got Kerbeus, there's a chance for Ken to come back in the show, Dragon, Drum, Achilles, Iga, you know, Xander with Excalius. Like, there's so many options here. Even like Lucifer.
Yeah. But Bolto, that was a good segue on to the little March 21st, the 321 Go Shoot potential announcement, and what that could be, what that could mean. I have some theories. I'm sure Kim has some theories as well. So, Kim, do you want to give your theory first?
Sure. So, I see 3 options with this. Like, the most likely to happen, kinda little chances, and one that probably won't happen. But the most likely one I see is an announcement for the next gen. Them going right into and just announcing like something big with the next generation. It's gonna be wild to see how they go about it, though, because it's like Burst is so innovative as a series. Like, you got the base being really heavy, but also the burst factor and such. Yeah. Like, next gen, I can imagine them maybe going down more of an MFB approach, like more metal with the bays and such. And I mean, it would be wild if they did a system that was like they somehow, some way it's like an end game type of thing. So what I mean with this is if they like take elements from all the previous gens and somehow combine them into one.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people wanting that.
That would be
That
really
would be
sick,
pretty cool.
especially with like having some crossovers, like oh, let's have some dream scenarios like Tyson versus Jenga versus Vault or something like that. That
Mhm.
would be insane. Like if you have like some time paradox type stuff with that and they make it where that can happen, that would be wild. But yeah, that being like the biggest one, like an announcement for the new gen. I'd say the middle one that's more unlikely is maybe they decide because it said on the actual paper itself it went from 2015 to 2023, that being burst, if they decide to put out like a few more releases for some very very last bays for like Beyblade Burst. So in my mind it'll be like bays like Zeus, Diabolos, Hades, Apocalypse, Genesis. Those would be probably my top 5. If I had to pick a 6 and a 7, I'd definitely say Death Scyther and Wyvern.
What was the paper that said 2015 to 2023?
It was like on like the app. Like Zanky showed it off in the video. It said the timetable being from 2015 to when Burst started and ending in 2023. So it's like we don't.
It was like the investor thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that thing. And it could be like maybe they extend it a little bit because it's like you think about it, we still got one release in 2023, and that being the Plastic Jet remake set for the V2 base. That's how we're getting Drasil V2. And that's like a confirmed thing, and it's coming out in February. So it's like you got that window from when Lucifer drops to like January, and then like that releases in February. So it's like, will there be something in January? Is that just gonna be like a hiatus month where we don't get anything?
Yeah.
But that being the second one, and then the third one, which I think is most unlikely, but you know, like TT announcing some kind of collab with Hasbro, and then we see like, which would be wild, some Quad Strike base that would be like on that TT. That would be insane though, if that were to actually happen, because they have the show and like a lot of people like watching that show and it getting traction. That would be insane, but I don't see that really happening. It would be cool if it did, but yeah, those are my theories anyways.
So for me, so I think that because you know Takara Tomy has talked about Beyblade becoming evergreen in Europe, or at least it's kind of the goal. I think that no matter what, I think especially, I mean, with Hasbro bays back in like MFB, yeah, you had Metal Fury be kind of like worse quality, but in general, I guarantee you the Quad Strike or Quad Drive stuff is cheaper to produce than those, especially with how many they're making, economies of scale, whatever. You also have the fact that probably the anime is cheaper. I would say that the Dynamite Battle / or Quad Strike anime is cheaper to produce than the 4D animation was. Like, if you like, sure, it's way better technology now. Animation looks better, but in terms of cost, I guarantee you that full-length 50-something episode season where you had Rago, whatever, like destroying parts of the earth with this freaking Diablo nemesis. I'm pretty sure that that had to have been more expensive to animate than Bell versus Quadra, you know? So I feel like now Hasbro's taking even more of a every Beyblade is cheaper to produce. And by doing that, they're always making money. And I just feel like they rely on the show so much to like, as like an advertisement. They want to keep it in the eyes of people. So while Takara Tomy could go without a season, or they could go a year and then come back, Hasbro, I don't think they want to do that, or I don't think it's going to be good for their bottom line. So what I think could happen is that we get this Quad Strike anime, and that kind of fills in for the year. And then on the 21st, we get an announcement of, it's kind of like a next gen, except I don't know if Takara Tomy is going to treat it like a next gen. They could, but they could it's kind of like a side series, but it's kind of like whenever Nintendo announced the Nintendo Switch, they said that it wasn't going to replace the 3DS. It wasn't going to replace it. And then the Switch did so friggin' well, then they obviously it ended up replacing it. So I feel like Takara Tomi's gonna announce something. It's probably gonna be a new kind of like a subsystem, and if it fails, they'll just scrap it. Just kind of like what they did with Zero G. But if it does well, then they'll kind of keep going with it. So it's gonna have like not really a lot of plans for the future. But I do think we're gonna see another gen, especially because on the 3-2-1 paper, you do see all the logos of every Beyblade series at the bottom. It's not just Burst.
Yeah.
They could just on March 21st do like a marathon on the Takara Tomy YouTube channel where they show every single episode of Beyblade ever made as like a celebration, but that would be so disappointing. So I really hope that we get another generation, especially with them saying it's going to be evergreen and they want to kind of keep making it. Kind of like what Transformers is doing. Like there's never like Transformers is always making new stuff all the time, even if they have to re-release old stuff in kind of like a slight redesign, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be like another generation, but it might be smaller than people anticipate it to be, just in case it doesn't do well.
Oh yeah. There's an interesting thing you said with that too. Like in the middle of it mentioning like Zero G or Shogun Steel. Do you think that this gen could kind of be like Burst Shogun Steel? It's like a new kind of system, but it's still Burst. Like the bays are shaped differently compared to how the bays are originally throughout what we've seen with Burst. But like with a new kind of system, they do a time skip to where they go a few years in the future and stuff, and maybe like Vault and Shu and the others are all adults, kind of like how it was for Zero G. Like maybe something like that. Do you think that's a possibility?
That's actually a good question. I'll answer it, and then Bolto, you could answer or give your take after. I don't think so, because I feel like if they were just gonna come back to Burst characters, then they would have had the Quad Strike anime release in Japan as well, even if it's just online again. But I think they gave that to Hasbro to be like a Hasbro exclusive thing because they were done with it. So I think maybe we could get kind of like a future time skip where you have a lot of the characters aren't there, but I think them doing something new, I think would be, even if there's no anime for it, like with what Burst did whenever Burst first came out, that whole entire, and the same thing for MFB, and I think for Plastic as well, the whole first lineup did not have an anime tied to it. It wasn't until Dual Layers, like 30 releases in, that the anime premiered. I think that was like a year.
Yeah.
So we could get something that's, we could get something that's like potentially smaller, lighter, honestly, hopefully way cheaper. You know, because if they go back to like metal Beyblades and they're like way smaller, not as detailed, and they're the same price, I don't think people are going to be interested. But if they're way cheaper-ish, then people will buy them just because. And then we'll get an anime potentially the next year for a follow-up line, you know? So that's kind of what I see is more likely. What do you think, Bolto?
So I have 3 theories on it. And one that ties into my initial theory, right? That it's a miniature side series that Hasbro's not going to get. And then the second theory is actually what Jake said, is that it's just going to be reruns, and it might even be a reanimation like they're doing with Naruto, right? Where they reanimate some of the series, but like the key events, right? And they put it into, like they do like a little marathon thing. And then lastly, let's say we do get a new gen. Okay, what I theorize the new gen would be is small, right? It would be something that they would experiment with first, just like Jake said. But I could see it being like they're gonna have to put a gimmick in it other than Burst. Like it's obvious to me that they're kind of done with Burst. Like Takara Tomy has expressed it, and like just the way that they like their releases and their anime, they've ended the anime, and it just seems to me like through the things that they posted and just how they're acting about it, they're just done. Like they're not really interested in moving on with Burst. So it could be that we see all the icons. You know what I mean? It's not like it just showed like all the Burst or the Burst series, right? Icons. It showed every single icon. So it's like it either has to be a new gen or just a rerun. So I don't know. For me, I theorize that the new gen could be like morphing layers if they make a new gen. It could be like morphing layers, or
Yeah.
I'm thinking along the lines of Zoid's Wilds. I hated Zoid's Wilds. Some people loved it. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just didn't really like it. Right? It was just a mini thing that had these weird little toys, and you rode on the back of the Zoids. Right? So I'm trying to think along the lines of that. Like, how would they make a mini series that would take Beyblade, right, a giant like that,
Hmm.
and kind of scale it down to where it's just like a side series. Bay Wheels. No, I'm kidding. No. Can you
Bay
imagine if they
Raiders,
remade
Bay
Bay Wheels?
Warriors.
Oh my god, that was like literally the dumbest thing ever. But
The Bay Raiders, though.
I thought it would be cool as if it. Okay, now this is just something I think would be cool. But if Takara Tomy was smart, um, by the way, I think we could throw away the idea of them remaking Plastic Gen or Metal Fight Base because they've already done it for Burst. And
Yeah.
let's be honest, it's not. It was popular, but it wasn't popular enough to like have them take a second look at it. There's still a lot of sets left and a lot of sports, right? You could still go and buy like the full-on sets or just the individual like Dragon Storm and stuff like that. So the fact that they're not sold out and people didn't go absolutely mad over them shows that okay, they probably wouldn't go in that direction. And
Yeah.
me personally,
People just don't really know who these characters are because the
Yeah, they're
series is
not
still for
boomers.
young people. So like 15, 16-year-olds, that's kind of like older, a little bit older than their target demographic. They were not even conscious yet when
weren't even thought of.
yeah, they weren't alive
Gee.
when Tyson was
Kicking.
slinging, and they were still, drinking formula whenever Jinka got Galaxy Pegasus for the first time. They were too
That
young.
is true. That is true. That's crazy. But I don't know. Like, I think that morphing layers or just something very unique is not going to be the burst system in my idea or my
Mhm.
mind. I really don't think it's going to be burst. I don't think it's going to be a previous gen. If it does end up being a new gen, I think that is just going to be something that either that we'll hate or we'll love. But like I said, smart would be taking an HMS route. If you don't want to have metal contact points, then at least put like half metal, half plastic. Like
Yeah.
people love Achilles, and there's not just an irony behind it. It's literally like it was like almost half metal, half plastic. Remember the Union Achilles, or what was it? What was the Achilles that was really popular? It was kind of resembled the HMS Bay. That was one of the most popular bays. A, because it was really strong, and B, because people really liked the way that it looked.
Yeah.
So it's like if they took that idea and
Was
they're
it
like,
Z Achilles, the first one?
the Achilles, yeah, that's it. What was it? It was the Achilles, and then there was
Shows the Achilles.
the Achilles. That one was like one of the most popular ones, along with Union Achilles.
Yeah.
But those are really cool. Like we got a glimpse of what like HMS pays in smaller burst form. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
with Winning Valkyrie and Z Achilles and Emperor Fornius. That was really cool.
Yeah, even with Dynamite Bellio, because it's so much smaller than like quite a few of like the DBBU bays, but it's still really good.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Valkyrie is one of my favorite Valkyrie layers of all time. Along with Chozi Valkyrie. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
I think the problem with that is there's a reason why HMS bays are really expensive. There's some of, if not the most expensive Beyblades to try and collect, and it's because they didn't produce that many of them. And I don't believe they were that popular when they came out. I think the issues with that, the same thing as what happened with kind of like the first runs of Burst, is that it seemed like a downgrade. Like if you take Dragoon G or Dragoon GT, and then you have like just that pure size comparison to Dragoon MS,
It's super.
they're way smaller. the launchers, and it was still connected to the plastic generation too. It came out right afterwards, right? There wasn't a gap. And they didn't market it as this is a new generation. It's just plastic still, but with, some changes. Different launchers, different ripcords. The Beyblades are really cool, but they were very small. And I feel like, and people are going to battle them up against what they had before. And the battles just seem kind of weird. And I just don't think, it didn't really last. And that's kind of the same thing that happened with, I was going to say Zero G, but Zero G was very similar. It's just that I think the stadium was absolute garbage. I feel like people were burnt out of Beyblade, and that was before you had all these Beyblade YouTubers that were talking. You had a few, so you had several, but I think it's way, social media is way bigger now. More people are able to get introduced to Beyblade than ever before.
Yeah, right.
And I feel, and if I remember right, whenever Burst first came out, I got into it during Dual Layers, so I kind of missed a lot of the early releases, except for like a couple. A lot of people, like a surprising amount of people, didn't care for them because they were so low detail in plastic, and people still had their El Drago Destroys, Varieris, Diablo Nemesis that looked really cool. And then if you battle that up against the original Excalibur or the original Death Scyther, it's like, because I think that plastic Beyblades is a downgrade compared to metal, and it took them time to catch up. And I feel like if they go from mainly plastic to mainly metal again, and they reduce the cost, even if they're simplified, I feel like people are still going to appreciate them more. The same way as, MFB blew up almost immediately because it was metal, and metal's always cooler,
Yeah. It's funny how you said it earlier about I mean, it's a little bit of spin off, but not much. But like how each first part of each generation wasn't aired in the show. It was like what came after that. So like you had like Spin Dragoon from the original plastic gen that were bays made before the actual show came out, and then you had like the PHW horoscope bays for MFB that came out before we saw like the hybrid system in the show. And then same thing for Burst, the single layers coming out before we actually got the dual layer bays and stuff. So it's just crazy like seeing that pattern even.
Yeah, like you had the manga had them, but it just wasn't animated. So I get maybe they'll have like a new mangaka or whatever, or maybe like writing for it, but it break tradition for them to just have a new anime straight away.
Yeah. And it's like with Beyblade, like a show like this, it's just like there's a given life cycle with it. Like it's always towards the end. It's ironic because you got some of like the strongest bays in the series towards the end, but it's also one of those seasons that you see like the decline for it, because I think it's just like how for a lot of games like this, how the life cycle is, and quite a few people live on like nostalgia. So like you got people that are like big time fans of like, oh, this series, the first, second seasons, but then they think like the later seasons, it's like, oh, so much changed. And like even in the case of like Zero G, people being like, oh, where's Kiyoya? Where's all these characters? Where's Kenta? Like, why are we seeing any of them? So people falling off because of that. And then even with like how it is for Burst right now, it's like, okay, we're seeing like Vault and Shoot. What about like Free and Louie and all these other characters? Like, what about them?
Yeah, it's kind of the whole like nostalgia thing is that it's kind of important because if you try and keep continuing something, you'll have new people come in. You're going to be losing a lot of older people, right? That's why it's kind of why I think they should just move away from Burst and just have something completely new, because then everybody can get kind of reinvested into something that's new, completely new, and they can't like compare it in the same way. They can't say, oh, this new user of Excalibur is way worse than the old one, or they can say that the old Beyblade series is better, but if it's something completely new, then it's easier to get invested into it again,
Yeah, definitely. You saw that with just like how Jan came in, everybody was like Xhaka, like what? Where's Xander? or like Loden having it. No, we need one Louis, or especially Fumia having it. Where's Free at?
Yeah. And also another thing, this kind of goes to like the potential release schedule. The original Valkyrie Wing Excel, the first release for Beyblade Burst, that came out with a bunch of other stuff in July of 2015.
Yeah,
So,
wasn't it like Valkyrie, I think what, Valkyrie, Spriggan, Ragnarok, Kirbyus?
yeah, starters, a couple boosters, the stadium, Baylogger, and a launcher grip.
A lot of stuff
Yeah.
came out then. I mean, when I got into Burst, it was when I was in college, even in 2015. So when it was starting up, it got some of the stuff. But my first bays were actually like Death Scyther and Wyvern. It was right when they both like were released.
Same, bro. That's so funny.
Yeah, my first Burst Bay, I believe, was either Death Scyther or Excalibur.
Oh, Excalibur, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Dude, was it Xeno Excalibur?
No, it was the original one.
Oh, the original? Okay.
Yeah, with Extreme.
Extreme
Was lovely. I love that driver.
Bro, dude, I'm telling you what, the thing about Burst, and I just remember in college it was so refreshing. And I remember my college mates and I used to play just every now and then. And it was just like, it was like the unpredictability of it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not just like, okay, I can just pick an attack type and win every time, or a defense type, or a sleeper. It's like you never knew, especially with the single layers and dual layers. You know, there was always that really mysterious factor. It's like, okay, am I gonna win or am I gonna burst? You know, and then you would burst when you thought you're gonna win it. It's like, I don't know, it's just refreshing.
And that's what I looked forward to for new releases, because they'd have new releases that promise to make one of the aspects less random feeling. Like whenever they kind of made like think of like dash drivers, or even before that having like a burst, not a lock, like a burst stopper of sorts. It kind of starts removing that, and it's like, oh, this piece has some issues, but it has a burst lock, or this piece has metal on it, and so it's like way heavier, and it's known to be heavier, so that's going to be good for attack, you know. And then as soon as all these, it's like the power creep added up so much. Now basically every bay has a burst lock. Every bay has metal on it. Every release has some major gimmick, and nothing bursts anymore. So it kind of just, the gimmick is gone. And I think it's been gone for a little while.
I'd say, honestly, with DB and BU, that gimmick's come back a bit more. Because like with Super King, yeah, especially having like double chassis bays, it made it so difficult for them to burst that you wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
Both like DB and BU bays, if they get hit hard enough, some of them could be bursted big time. Like, for example, I love Astro Spriggan and I love Zest Achilles. I believe, like, stock-wise, they're two of the strongest DB and BU bays, like, stock-wise, because they're completely, like, shapeshifters and literally have accounted for everything, because Quattro and all the different modes with each of them. But the big thing with them is, like, if they get hit hard enough, it still takes, like, a major hit to do it, but they can burst, and that being, like, the check on their powers.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it was just... Maybe it's probably just because of like nostalgia, but old, like first run, like the single layer, dual layer. Even into God bays, like the bays were small, and you'd have some like pretty like big hits, you know, which would cause some crazy bursts. And now like, it's way more rare.
Everywhere.
And the bays are so much bigger now as well, that like they just don't fit in the stadium nearly as well. And I don't want to have to get a bigger stadium in order to have the same fun, you know? That's why like every generation of Beyblade has had their standard attack stadium that are basically the same exact things, with maybe some differences in like the height of the walls or something like that. But in general, they're all the same, because, you know, it's kind of what people know as being the stadium. Even like the Pro Series has that stadium, or it's basically the same thing with some small differences. And so we need to keep the Beyblades able to battle in that stadium. And if they're too big for that stadium, I don't think we should make the stadium bigger. I think we should make the bays smaller. The original 11 burst releases, those came out in July of 2015, and then the dual layer releases came out the following April. And so I think that we're gonna get something potentially something kind of similar, in that I think March 21st is way too late to announce a new series and an anime all at one time to be premiering like the next like week. That's a little much. I think it's too fast. So I think that, maybe an announcement in March, and then a few months later we get the first releases, and then maybe it could follow that same schedule. But having that schedule introduces its own problems for Hasbro. So, because as soon as the Quad Strike anime ends early 2024 for Hasbro, that could be about when the new anime for the new series, if there is one, would premiere. And they can't air simultaneously, or at least they never have before. That'd be cool though. I really wish they did.
Yeah. Also going on that point, didn't it with Burst, what I remember, didn't they announce like Burst being a thing in early 2015, and then it was only a few months after where we actually started getting the bays?
So a release in like July.
Yeah.
So, because I know like for Burst, pretty much because all of them, it basically never ended. Like maybe it'd take like a week off or 2 weeks off or something, but you'd have the final Beyblade Burst like sparking episode, and then like a week later you'd have Dynamite Battle starting. So I feel like if they announce it March 21st, we're gonna get the first products release in July, and then the manga started in August. So it started a little bit afterwards. So we get the manga starting then. And so if they do that, right, I think the issues that comes with that, if they want Beyblade to be, evergreen, is you have potentially a year where Hasbro doesn't have an anime. Because if this premieres in 2024, anime premiere in 2024, Hasbro's not going to get to that until 2025.
Right.
And so what are they going to do besides maybe having some like Legends releases? But I don't think that they would do that. Or maybe they do take like a year off where they release just Pro Series stuff or something. I don't know. So a simultaneous release would be cool, but you'd have to have the products be the same, which I don't think they're gonna do.
It would be cool if they did like a Legends type of thing. Like if they went back and did some of the bays they never made. Like if they continue with the Pro Series, let's get some more revenue off of Burst while we can. And then also they go back and have like a Legends type of series where they make bays like Amaterios, or like an actual Baldarov or things like that. Be like a little bit of like a final cash grab for them before they go to the next generation.
Yeah. I mean, they could fill a whole year with that. Have like Valkyrie release the original one, or not the original, at least maybe not the original, but Victory Valkyrie release, Spriggan, pretty much everything up through Cho Z. Because I think didn't Legends start with like GT stuff? Not Legends. Pro Series start with GT stuff. No, it started with Cho Z stuff.
It started with Turbo stuff.
Yeah. So they still could have like a season or two. But Bolto, what do you think? What do you think could happen?
For sure, a break. Like that's how they've done it for a very long time. Like even the original Beyblade, we had the original Dragoon, and it wasn't Dronzer. It was, what was it? It was like Flash something, or I can't remember. It's like a really weird, like Frostic Dronzer. No, it was Dronzer.
Yeah, I think Frostic is. Yeah.
Yeah, they released them in magazines or something like that, and then you could buy them like in select store. I can't remember how.
I think it was in the game. They had a Game Boy Color game.
Yes, that's it. You're freaking smart. Anyway, so they've always done that, and so it would make perfect sense. This is like literally like, I mean, I don't want to get too excited because I don't know if I feel like we're gonna get like, like let down by the fact that it's just reruns or something, or like a thank you from Takara Tomy. Oh, that would suck so bad. But like I feel like if they were to do a new gen, obviously they would do like a soft release for the base, see if they took on, and then obviously they're probably working on the anime right now, and they would start releasing like the new season within a year,
Yeah.
half a year to a year. So I'd say about 6 months, 7 months. How long was it? You discussed that.
It was
Uh,
July is when we got the first Beyblade release, and it was April, the following April, that we got the anime premiere.
it's almost it's pretty much a year. So
Oh, for
Yeah.
Burst, yeah.
it's
But
crazy.
also the disc for Legends, right? In Hasbro, we had the Legends stuff come out, I think 2014, 2015. I remember seeing them on shelves then. And then I think it was only out of stores for like maybe a few months before Takara Tomi's premiere of, you know, the first run of Beyblade Burst stuff. So really there really wasn't as big of a gap as we would think because of the two different markets.
Yeah, I think of it's like all the domino pieces are falling in place. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like it's been before. It's just a little bit closer, but you can't deny that like Beyblade Burst has been insane. Like in terms of popularity. I mean, MFB was probably more popular, right, than Burst, but like I don't
It probably
know.
had a bigger, I think it had a bigger peak. But also it's because Metal Fight was, you had people in Romania playing it. Meanwhile, Hasbro's distribution has been god awful, and then Takara Tomy doesn't distribute outside of Asian countries. So Metal Fight was definitely more global, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. In terms of longevity and such and size wise, Burst is the biggest, honestly, the biggest Beyblade series ever. Because you think about it, for the random boosters alone, we got 30.
Yeah. And also you just look at YouTubers. Like I know like it's kind of an odd metric to base stuff off of, but with how everything has grown and social media has grown, I mean, I think the biggest Beyblade YouTuber was, you know, it still is Beyblade Geeks, but for Beyblade Geeks back when Metal Fight ended, what, they had like maybe a few 100,000 subs, right?
Yeah.
Which is still a lot, but compare that to basically 10 years later, you have them almost 2 million, and then you have a few reaching that million mark. You have channels in Brazil and all across the world that have over 100,000 subscribers each, you know, so it's way bigger now, and that kind of adds to the marketing. You know, you have these videos pop off on the algorithm. So I have no doubt that, you know, I don't know how much our impact was, but I guarantee you we help sales as well. And that's why I don't think Beyblade is gonna like just go away completely. And I think that's social media and whatnot's pretty powerful. But
you make a good point about the YouTube stuff,
yeah,
Jake. Like this is definitely the biggest series or orbit for YouTube, you know. And in terms of like the end of Burst here, I don't know if we're gonna get much of anything else, you know, besides the Hasbro. It's quite shocking. But if we get like some pro series, like you guys said, at the new Hasbro season, like it's gonna be like insane because the rest of the world will want them, but only like US and Canada and stuff like that will have them. So it's gonna be an interesting thing, you know. We might see some, you know, the Takara Tomy, if demand is high enough, the Takara Tomy remake them. I don't know, but who knows?
I really hope that we go to that on March 21st. We get a new generation. It'd be nice if they didn't skip out on the anime. We kind of got that straight after, because we have had an anime gap in Takara Tomy for a year. So that's their gap. They could just straight up come back, you know, and announce something straight away. That would also solve the Hasbro anime problem, right? I hope we go to metal, make the base smaller. I'd be nice if we either get magnets involved, but that could be kind of dangerous because of, you know, medical devices that don't really act well with magnets. So even if we have,
oh my god, I didn't think about that.
even if we have Beyblades that are like, you know, with their like metal layers, and they were basically split in half, and you get like a Uranus, or no, an Artemis and Apollo sort of thing, to where you could link pieces together and basically make your own typings. Anything would be something like that. I think would be interesting. But I think they have to go to metal here, or they need to have some really cool gimmick that just makes Burst not seem as cool. But that's kind of hard to do, because Burst was really awesome at the start. But I'm pretty hopeful for it. I think that despite Burst wrapping up and, you know, Hasbro having their own continuations, which is a good and a bad thing. I think now's a pretty great, or it's still a great time to be a Beyblade fan, you know? There's always been people like the doomsayers saying, "Oh, it's going to be over next year," or "It's going to be over in 6 months," but we always get surprised with something else.
Yep.
I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful that we do get something cool in that March announcement. I will say though, if it ends up being a Beyblade anime marathon on the YouTube channel, I will riot.
I will stick to.
I will riot.
Yeah, be sure to slice that like button, y'all. Y'all already know. Show love to Bolto. Show love to your boy Jake, and my channel's Kimbo. You know, so
Yeah, links in the description, of course.
Honored. These two are also goats, so pay your respects because they deserve it.
I'm honored as well. Kimbo, Jake, we've been friends for a long time, and Jake and Kimbo, if you guys don't know, have been really close to me and in the Beyblade community, and just in general, we're just friends, and I'm very honored to be able to do something like this with them, and I definitely look forward to more. I think that we can all agree that, you know, Baycasting is fun and it's simple, and, you know, we can just kind of get our opinions out without putting like a ton of like craziness out there. But yeah, this is Balto Mess signing out. I would love to say Jake's catchphrase, but I'll let them do it at the end.
Yeah.
And it's your boy Kimbo signing off, and also these guys are my boys, so much so that I literally have them both tatted on my wrist. Just saying.
That's so wild to think about. But thanks to everybody watching. Hopefully the next one will be a live stream. I feel like that'd be pretty cool. We could take some questions from the community. But let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks to Kimbo and Bolto MS for joining me for the Baycast. I'll see you in the next one. Have fun and bay away.